And welcome back, y'all. So today, again, I'm going to do something a little different. You may have heard a previous interview I did with Joseph Doherty, who he has a book out about Rod Serling and the Twilight Zone. It's so great, and I'm glad to have had him on my show. But I also wanted to bring someone on to give you a little bit of an opposite perspective of something. And I was reached out to by a publishing publicist, and was told, "Hey, would you like to interview this person for your podcast?" And as soon as I saw Grease 2 as part of their book that they have going on, I was like, this person is my people. I like that. But my guest today is a genderqueer and queer femme identifying Virgo writer and artist. They are originally from Oklahoma, but they do split their time between Vermont and California. They're also a psychotherapist and a graduate professor in counseling psychology, working specifically with trauma, LGBTQ plus communities, and addiction and recovery. And specifically, they also are a writer. So this book that they're we're going to be talking about today is called Comfort Sequels, The Psychology of Movie Sequels from the 80s and the 90s. And also they have a podcast about Twin Peaks called the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit as well. But without further ado, please welcome to my show, the one, the only Emily Marinelli. Hi, Emily. How
Hi,
are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me and also for being interested to talk about Greece too. That
Of
is very exciting to me.
course. Yes, yes, absolutely. And also just like in general, like your book and everything like this. Cause again, once I had this, I got reached out to by the publicist of the publishing company about this book. And I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, like Grease 2 is definitely a cult movie. On my show, if you don't already know, I cover every episode is another cult movie. I go into production history. I talk about the plot. I try to break down the characters and analyze some stuff for, how I will ever want to do that. And this made sense to me because I think a lot of the films that are in your book in particular can be considered kind of cult movies. So I think we'll have a
Mm,
fun conversation about that kind of thing and yeah, like why these are important and why they're important to you specifically. I want to start off though. I want to ask like I did read a little bit of your book, not too much of it, like, because it is something where you can kind of what's nice about her book, everybody, is that like you can kind of go between chapters, like
yeah,
maybe if you haven't
totally.
seen films, because I haven't seen all the films in the book, you can kind of like pick and choose, which is cool. Or if you've seen all the movies, you can learn all about Emily's life, which is cool too. But yeah, but what I want to ask though is like, I guess what was your inspiration for writing this book? What made you want to decide like, all right, well, I'm going to sit down and actually write it? And, yeah, I guess what was your inspiration of that? I mean, how was your process too? Like, what was it
Hmm.
like? Again, I think I asked Joe, I was like, were you like a book, coffee shop writer or something
Oh,
or
yeah,
whatever,
yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But yeah, I'd love to hear what your inspiration and process was for
Thank
making this.
you. Thanks for asking that question. Yes, so I loved movie sequels. I always have. I'm like a kid of the 80s and like sequels were just coming out, right? They were just coming out and like in the early 90s too. And like when I saw Mannequin 2 on the move in the movie theater, like time stopped. Like I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I loved like and not the like totally, high box office, what have you, the Back to the Futures and whatever. Those were great and those were awesome. But I really liked the My Girl too. I really liked the kind of more off the beaten trail, the things that really spoke to me as like a kid, a young kid. And some of the things in my book, like Karate Kid 2, for example, it's really hard. That's an excellent film. That's like a beautiful, beautiful movie. So you can't debate like the fact that that's like a gorgeous, well done film. But then you get Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, which I watched so much and it's like so silly and so ridiculous and like pretty bad. And so I liked, when I was a kid, the like more off the beaten trail ones they really spoke to me because, you know, growing up with a hard life and just a lot of stuff going on and a lot of trauma, I really loved having the characters that I loved in the first movie come back so that they could return. There was something familiar, something safe, something comforting about seeing them come back and having the story continue or go in a totally different direction. I loved knowing that Veda was now, kind of a teenager and like, oh, she's interested in this boy and she's wearing mood rings and like, the mood ring that was from the first film that carries on to the second film. And she's got the coolest outfits and all of these things. And so I could see like the continuation of her life, and it's safe and comforting. And so that's where the concept came from. I was like, oh my gosh, this is, I think a lot of people might feel this way, not just necessarily about sequels, but about movies that you find comforting, that you want to watch over and over and over again, that are like your go-tos when you're having a bad day. I interviewed someone from Greece too. I actually interviewed three T-birds from Greece too, but one of the T-birds, Leaf Green, his name in the movie is David Jaworski, but he said that, when he was sick, when he was little, he would stay home and he would drink 7 Up and eat crackers. I forgot what kind of crackers he said. And that's what was comforting to him. And he would watch Meet Me in St. Louis. And that was what helped him like feel better. And I was like, oh my goodness, you love Meet Me St. Louis. And we had a total cute thing about that. And that was his comfort, right? And I told him, well, Grease 2 is my 7 Up and crackers, because that's what really spoke to me and made me feel good. So I wanted to create a book exploring these topics and themes. And I didn't know that it was going to be a memoir when I started, but then I started telling my own stories and I was like, this is kind of cool. And I'm just going to roll with this. And I was in writing workshops that were helping me like lean into tell your own story, see how it's connected to the characters, and see how it's connected to the themes in the movies, and see what happens. So each chapter is a different movie. Batman Returns, The Neverending Story 2, like I said, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Ghostbusters 2, obviously Grease 2, Centralized, My Girl 2, The Great Muppet Caper, which isn't technically a sequel, but we're going to say that it is. And, the things that meant something to me. So Lethal Weapon 2 is a great movie, but it wasn't something that was comforting to me like when I was a kid, right? So those type of things were left out. And in terms of my writing process, at first, I thought that I needed to have like a candle and 3 hours of undisturbed time in a special place with music playing. And then I realized that like I work full time, I'm a therapist, I'm a professor. I ain't got time for that. So I just started writing in between things. I would have a 10-minute break between clients and I would bust up my computer and write a couple of sentences and then play around with some stuff and then put it back. I also love to write in the morning. That's my favorite time. That's when my brain is on the most. Cup of tea, 2 cups of tea, and just writing. I wrote in cars while other people were driving. I wrote, any place that I could find to do it and any moment that I could grab to do it. And sometimes it was at a coffee shop, but most of the time it was just the in between moments and times. And that's just what has to happen, I think, for a lot of writers who are busy. And I can't even imagine writers who are parents. I'm not a parent, I'm a dog parent, but like you just have to find those stolen moments to put stuff down.
Absolutely. And I think you said so much there, and I just loved hearing all of it because yeah, I think like if you are interested in this, in what you're writing, like you do have to kind of find the time to do it. You have to find the time to put, pen to the page, if you will, or whatever it is. And so it's good that you were able to find that even if you have a busy life and all of this, which is good. I also love that the comfort movie for one of those T-birds was maybe in St. Louis, and I'm just like, and then you got to work with their daughter. Isn't that cool? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's awesome.
Exactly, exactly. What a
Like,
dream. Oh my
what a
gosh, to be
dream.
to be in the room with Lorna Luft, forget about it.
Literally, forget about it. Like, are you kidding me? Like, uh, I mean, it was before Lorna's time, but still, I was like, I'm pretty sure she should have been one of the children of Mutiny St. Louis. Who knows? Again,
Totally. Oh
before her
yeah.
time, but still, doesn't matter.
Doesn't Liza show up in the end of that? Or is that
I
Easter
maybe.
parade? She might
Oh,
be,
I don't
she might.
know.
She might show up in the end of it.
Maybe, perhaps, yeah.
Mhm.
She like throwing her kids in there sometimes. It was like that in Lucy. Like, she would throw her children in the shows every so
Mm-hmm.
often,
Mm-hmm.
as you do, which is fine. But yeah, but I love hearing about your process with that, and I think
Thanks,
like
man.
it's cool because like a memoir is something where you are being vulnerable, and the best memoirs I think are ones that are vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
like one of the ones is like, I mean, the two that I have listened to are like the Jeanette McCurdy book, which you as a
I haven't read it
therapist,
yet. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I haven't
oh,
read it yet. It's on my bookshelf.
oh, it's worth it, Em. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
saying.
I'm ready for
Um,
it.
literally, because you're just going to be like, wow, this chick has gone through some therapy and good for her. Like,
Hmm.
literally
Yeah.
that. And then also Elvira's book as well. I
Oh,
mean,
that is
that,
that. I did read that, and she is so, oh
oh,
my gosh, Cassandra, she is fantastic.
oh my
I learned
God.
so much.
Oh my God. Like, so good. A very just, so I think that's kind of the best memoirs out there is that when you are
Hmm.
able to, and I think that's the thing is that anybody who is a consumer of these things, they can smell out BS really easily. Right.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think like, I watched a video recently and Kiki Palmer, we like Kiki Palmer.
Hmm.
She released a memoir. Was it actually a memoir?
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know about that. I think the streets say otherwise. Which again, it's one of those things like if you're just gonna make like a self-help book, like just make a self-help book.
Right.
Don't call it a memoir if you're gonna be
Yeah.
like, my private life's my private life. I was like, then why are you making a memoir? You kind of have to like you got to rip your heart out a little bit and like put it on display just a
Totally.
little, but that's if you're going to do a memoir, that's kind of the bread and butter of it, in my opinion.
And that
But
was really
yeah,
scary for me to kind of grapple with because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm
yeah,
writing about my dad, and I've had this very
right.
hard relationship with him for my whole life. And
Hmm.
I'm writing about that, and I'm writing about my mom and our beautiful relationship, but now her being in early Alzheimer's, and all of that stuff is really
Right.
vulnerable and really raw. And I think something that was so helpful for me was having this weekly writing group of people who saw me through the whole book. And
Right.
so they were really like kind of not only holding me in a writer way of like giving me feedback, but holding me like emotionally around how hard it is to write our
Hmm.
stories. And because they were also all writing their stories and different versions of their stories in creative nonfiction. So
Yeah.
I would say that, for me, as like a writer who's just coming, this is my very first book. I've written academic stuff. This is my first
Mhm.
book. That having that community was like vital for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. That's so cool. And what's nice too is that like not it's not morbid, but I think it's more just like if anything, like, you know, you're able to capture your mom at a place where you can remember her fondly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's really cool about it. I lost my father as a young child, and for me, like I wasn't the closest to him, but it definitely is weird not growing up with a dad and having a single
Hmm.
mom.
Hmm.
And that's just not the typical thing for society or whatever. And
Hmm.
so it is interesting, but yeah, you do have to kind of put it out there a little bit. And it's cool that you're able to, even if you don't have the best relationship with your dad, right? Like you're still able to be like, this is my truth at least, and take it or leave it. But then also, like I said, like, you're also able to, the unfortunate thing with your mom of having Alzheimer's, but like you're able to construct this book where you're able to talk about the beautiful relationship you guys have had and the strife you've dealt with, of course, as well, but also just like the beauty that's come from that too. You can't make a diamond without coal, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just one of
Exactly.
those things. And it's,
Exactly.
we all have our own stuff, right? Like it just is
And I think it's in that way it's relatable, right? Like and
100%.
listeners, I really want you to know that this book is also about movies. So it's not just
It
about
is.
like
It
my
is.
life, but the themes are so great. Like My Girl 2 is all about motherhood. And I
It
was able to
is.
interview Christine Ebersol, Broadway goddess, and talking about
Mrs. Rich
how
herself. Okay.
I know. Thank you. Exactly. Thank you. I saw her in 2007 in Grey Gardens and I like just
Oh my
died.
God, yes.
But she became a mother while they were filming My Girl 2, and she was playing a surrogate mother to Veda in that movie. And if y'all haven't seen My Girl 2, it's actually like a very sweet, sweet, sweet movie. People like don't even know, some people don't even know it exists, but there's such a beautiful parallel about motherhood and connection that I weave into the story of what that movie has meant to me, but also the kind of psychology behind motherhood and parenting and nurturance. And then in the way of my dad, no wonder I was attracted to Neverending Story 2 when I was a kid, which by the way, also people don't know that it exists, but it totally does. And Jonathan Brandis is the main character, and he plays Bastian. And Bastian has a really complicated, hard relationship with his father. And that's what that movie really is about, is how his dad really goes through a transformation to come back. And I'm not trying to spoil it, sorry, to come back around to Bastian and for them to find each other. And that's what me and my dad have ended up doing in some way. And I think we're still in the process of doing it. So there's these really beautiful parallels that end up happening through each movie and each chapter about my life. And I think that listeners relating, like you could relate around, what is a movie that you watched over and over that was comforting for you in a certain time of your life? What did it bring to you? What did it give to you? And why? And I think that's what this book asks and also shows how it was meaningful to me. And I hope it invites the question for you too of what are yours and what are you looking for? And maybe just I could ask you that question. Like, what are some of your comfort movies like from when you were little?
Oh, I love it. Oh my God. Like, put me on the spot. No, I'm just kidding. It's all good. We're
You
both
don't have to answer.
podcasters. No, you're good. No, I think for me, like my little comfort movies, I kind of have, I mean, like, even if I just read off my top four off Letterboxd, right? Like, for me, like some of these like movies, well, I even can do that. Like literally, like for me, my kind of comfort movies I have, weird one
Mhm.
is 1999's Jawbreaker. I don't know if you've seen it at all before. Like, oh my gosh, it
I think
is
I did see it. Yeah, I think I've seen it.
ridiculous. But it's a movie where three best friends in high school, quote unquote. They don't look anything like, but it's fine.
Is Rose McGowan in it?
Yes,
Sorry.
she
Okay,
is.
okay, I've seen it. Yes, I know what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Yes, but for me, like I loved that movie because like it's so colorful, it's
Hmm.
so weird and warped a little bit. And
Hmm.
there's so many different influences to this. Darren Stein, who's a lovely man, I've had him on the show before. But I like the director of this movie, like, he brought in so many influences from his own childhood, being a kid from LA, like, growing up in the 70s, 80s. He's bringing in like people want to say, oh, it's a ripoff of Heather, so that's why it got
Hmm.
kind of shitty reviews, all this stuff,
Hmm.
right? But it's like, okay, yes, Heather's is there, but like you have Heather's, you have Rock and Roll High School, you have Fast Times at Ridgemont High, you have
Hmm.
Carrie, you
Hmm.
have all these different things that obviously meant something to Darren, right? And
Hmm.
like that kind of amalgamated into him making this film, which is so cool. But I just love this because it is so warped. It's queer, kind of, sort of.
Hmm.
Like, is
Hmm.
Judy Greer a kind of in love with Liz Purr? I don't know, but maybe. Like,
Love
it's that
it.
kind of a thing. It's like,
Hmm.
yeah, but I also just felt like this is a little something different, isn't it? Like,
Hmm.
like this, I think I'll like this. And then finding out that Darren Stein's a big old homo, like, it's great. Like, that's wonderful for
Love
me.
it. So love
Like, that's
it.
great. Like, come on now. Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion's another one that I really like.
Love
That's me
it.
and my sisters. We grew up watching that. I love that it was just about two best friends who, yeah, they split off for a little bit, but like also like they still end up being best friends. The whole idea of like, why are you always such a nasty bitch? Like, blah 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 blah. That whole monologue that Mira Sorvino
Hmm.
has, right?
Hmm.
And it's just literally like, I finally realized, like, it doesn't matter what you think of us because we don't like you. You're a bad person with an ugly heart, and we don't give a flying fuck what you think,
Hmm.
right? It's just
Yeah.
like seeing a woman empowerment thing. This is also at a time where I wouldn't find out until a couple years later, but then having a single mom, like, it's like seeing this kind of cool female best friendship, like that
Hmm.
was just, and
Yeah.
it's just so fun. Like it's so like colorful. The outfits are cool. These two people are so funny. One of them's won an Oscar. One of them was on like the biggest show ever. Like, are you kidding me?
Mm.
Like, come on now. So of course, like I love that one as well. That's a comfort for me.
That's a great one.
Carrie is also a comfort for me too. I just got the Ultra 4K of it for Christmas. Hey girl,
Whoa.
thanks to my sister. And
How was
oh,
that?
beautiful. I love it.
Mm.
That movie is weird. I mean, it's
Hmm.
obviously Stephen King,
Hmm.
but that is what got me into horror movies particularly. And so for me, like that is just a comfort where I can watch that. And even though it's kind of like a Greek tragedy, I would say, but also
Absolutely.
it's just so touching to me.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And yeah, it's beautiful. I say what you will about Brian De Palma, I guess, but like guy knows how to make a movie, man. Like he does. Like,
Hmm.
and I just think like that is something where that is my foot into the horror
The
genre
horror
where
genre, which is like
yeah,
what you love now. Like that
I
was
love
the
it.
beginning.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
It's the beginning for me. Like
Hmm.
that's why I spend like however much money on Shutter a year, or like that's why like I want to read Bloody Disgusting. I want to like listen to horror themed things or whatever because that's what I like. I love other genres too, but like that's the one that I've been with since the beginning. And a little bit like that too. Like it wasn't until I was maybe a little older, but Rocky Horror for me is also very much kind of a comfort as well. It's just like, that's why those are my top four on Letterbox because I'm just like, yeah, no, like that. I take that as I can quote this movie up and down anytime I watch it. I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is great.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what my whole show is. Like, I'm talking about these movies that, I mean, is Jurassic Park like a cult movie? Maybe not, but whatever. I still had a great conversation about it. But like,
Yeah.
I still think like any of these things, like, but it's this cast aside cinema. It's this forgotten
Hmm.
cinema sometimes, which
Hmm.
it's funny
Exactly.
because a lot of these movies that you talk about very much are that. Like,
Yeah.
people hated Grease 2 when it came out.
Hmm.
People were like, you didn't talk about it, but the Hilary Swank one, the Karate Kid, people shit
Oh
on
yeah.
that.
Oh
And
yeah.
because why? Misogyny, that's why.
Absolutely. Thank you. Exactly.
I mean,
Like,
because
in
I'm
the
like
end.
young Hillary Swank's in there. I'm like, it can't be that bad. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm literally like, no, you just hate women. Just say
Thank
what you
you.
want to say. Like,
Thank you.
I don't get it. Like, you didn't like Jawbreaker. I'm like, because it wasn't made for you. So if you
Hmm.
hate it, fine. I I hate that there's a weird rape subplot in there. That's a little weird. Like that they have to like they're well, really Rose McGowan is trying to like stage as if her friend was assaulted, and that's kind of the whole thing to whatever. That's a little bit weird, but
Hmm.
also I'm like, it was 1999, but there's still other things going on where I'm just like, oh no, this is like gay fabulousness. I love
Well,
it.
that's what I love
Like,
about all of the things that all your three movies, because there's like
yeah,
strong female characters in all of
totally.
them. And also that queer mirroring that you're talking about, just like in
Yeah.
Jawbreaker, having that queerness reflected back for me was really important.
Mhm.
And you could be like, what do you mean? Grease 2 is not gay. It's a heteronormative relationship. And I'm like,
It's so
Grease 2 is
gay.
gay as hell.
It is so. Well, I'm gonna tell you something right now, and Emily, you can also shout it from the rooftops. Grease 2 is way gay. It is
Thank you.
so. It is so gay.
So
So
gay.
much so that they had a gay on as one of the T-birds. Like he was so
Thank
gay.
you. He's so gay and he's wonderful. And
It's
that's,
great. We love him, but like
yes.
literally, I'm like, no, it's literally Lorna Luft is there. I don't have to say
Thank you.
anything more.
Period. The end. Lorna
Are you?
left. Hmm.
She's there. She's a drag queen. Her
Yes.
mom
Yeah.
is literally the god of gays. Like, are you kidding
Oh,
me? Like,
oh my God.
yes,
Thank you.
this is a yes. And it's
Yeah.
funny, I didn't grow up with Grease 2. I liked Grease. Like, I definitely
Mhm.
watched that and I was just like, the hell is Grease 2? What is this all about? Like, and I think I watched it the first time last year, 2024. I literally was like, I've never watched this. It's on Paramount Plus. Like, let me hit this up. Why not? And you know
Mhm.
what? I had a perfectly good time with it. It was fun. Like, I wouldn't say I'm somebody who I'm like, oh yeah, I prefer it over the original. I'm just like, no, they're both fine for what they
Mhm.
are.
Mhm.
But I can understand why people love this one too. Like, you get what I'm saying? I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just maybe not for me, like in terms of like, oh yeah, no, I love this so much. I'm like, yeah, they're both cool. Like they
Yeah.
both have their own things. Like,
Yeah. But I think, I was drawn to like Michelle Pfeiffer as a strong female character. Like it's
100%.
1961 in this movie, and she's working at a gas station. She comes to school
Mhm.
wearing pants, and then she looks over and she's like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna get expelled." Puts on a skirt real quick
Right.
and then goes to class. I mean, and she's like unforgiving about, I want a cool
Yeah.
writer. That's who I want to
Mhm.
be with. And she doesn't change to be
Right.
with somebody. She's just like, this is what I want unapologetically. Give me a cool
Right.
writer. And she spells it out in the song. And I
$100%.
COOLRIDER. Like, it's so good.
In case you
And
missed it, right?
in case you forgot how to spell cool writer, and it's unapologetic, and she's very strong, and I was attracted to that energy. Same thing with her
Mhm.
as Catwoman. Did I have a crush on her? Yes, but that's not relevant. It's the
100%.
strong female sort of feminist vigilante character in Batman Returns that she plays.
Right.
Veda is an incredibly strong character in My Girl too. She goes to find out information about her mom by herself in LA as a teenager in the 70s. That's powerful.
Mhm.
That's badass.
Yeah.
you know okay, Miss Piggy in The Great Muppet Caper, Miss Piggy
Always.
single-handedly saves the day. Like without her, the day is not saved. Like she
Uh,
breaks out of prison with her body strength. She just pulls the bars
right.
gets on a motorcycle. Like kind of steals a big rig, gets on a motorcycle, and
Oh
then
yeah.
like launches herself atop the Mallory Gallery, and then like drops right in at the exact moment that is needed for
Mm,
them to get the baseball diamond back and for the day to be saved. I mean,
yeah,
that is female badassery, and
I
those are the
agree.
some of the themes that you're like, what again? Even Karate Kid 2, Tamlin
Hmm.
Tomita, who plays Kumiko, she is a very powerful female character, and she's a dancer, and I was a dancer. So I was really seeing,
Hmm.
I think part of what is comforting about some of these sequels, and maybe listeners, if you're thinking about your comfort movies, the way Jesse, you were
Hmm.
talking about yours, like that you see some of your own representation or
Agreed.
something about the character or the thematics that you really resonate with or that you need. And I needed those things.
Hmm.
I needed Meshach Taylor being gay as hell as Hollywood Montrose and Mannequin 2 on the move. I mean,
Yes.
he was wonderful, and that representation really mattered to me.
Hmm.
And so I think that's a lot of what is comforting. And then just to say, also, what's in this book is some behind the scenes stuff and some,
Hmm.
as we've alluded to, some celeb interviews that are really,
Yes.
really fun and totally amazing. I could never have imagined that I could talk to three T-Birds, including the cool writer himself, Maxwell Caulfield.
You
And I
got to
have a
talk to
tattoo.
Rex Manning, dude. Like what?
Rex Manning. I talked to Rex Manning. It was amazing. I was just like, I had like an out of body experience. Like, is this really happening? And I have a
Literally.
tattoo of him, and I met him in 2017, and I showed him the tattoo I have of him. It was so bold. I can't believe I did that.
Like, you want
But
to see
like, I
something?
did
Here
it.
you go.
I
Like,
know. And he was like, that's a bit extreme, darling. And I was like, oh my God, I
no,
know.
it's
I'm
fine. It's
sorry.
fine. Like, it's totally
But
fine.
whatever. We carry things from with us from the movies that we love. And for me, a lot
Right.
of times that comes in the form of tattoos. And so that's just one of them. I have a mannequin tube tattoo. I have a lot of different tattoos I have a lot of Twin Peaks tattoos, like talking about Twin Peaks. And that's important. Like psychologically speaking, we carry the thing with us from the thing we love, and
Mhm.
like infants, I'm just going to have a psychological moment. Like infants and toddlers, carry things from the caretakers with them when they leave. So, like
Mhm.
a bottle, or excuse me, like a pacifier or a
Mhm.
blanket, the thing that keeps you secure, connected to the caregiver, even when
Safe.
the caregiver is gone and safe. And I know it seems silly, but I think that's what we do now as adults and even as kids. Like, I had a whole carrying case of My Little Ponies when I was young, right? I carried them to school with me so they could jump off the cartoon screen into my little bag and I could take them with me because I didn't want to leave them. They were safe and comforting and secure. They were
Mhm.
familiar. They were predictable. The shit that was going on in my houses in different places was not. So
Mhm.
they became the thing that I could count on and that I could know and I could hold on to tangibly. And I think collectors now, I think we do a version of that, like,
Yeah.
right? Or people, I have friends, I interview my cousin in the book who's an incredible prop collector, and he restores props from original things. He's got all kinds of things. And I think that he has that connection to the movies that he loves, Die Hard, Star Wars, what have you,
Mhm.
Ghostbusters, a lot of Ghostbusters stuff that we talk about in the book. And I think it's really amazing how we still get to do that now. The fact that I'm wearing a Grease 2 shirt right now is an
Yeah.
example of it. And so this book is exploring that comfort and that familiarity of taking the things we love with us and how we
Mhm.
do it and why. And I hope that it invites readers to think about what matters to them in the same way.
I agree totally. That's very fair. And I also think like what's interesting too is like, again, this wasn't a whole conversation just about Greece too, but of course we've been able to like, sprinkle it all in. But what I think is cool is that like, there is this sort of like we are in such a nostalgic period, which we've always been, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter. Like even in the 90s, right, when we were growing up, like it was nostalgia for the 70s. That's why Nick at
Mm-hmm.
Night, for example, looked the way it did. You
Yes,
have things from that's why that whole block kind of happened was like literally nostalgia. Hey, parents of children watching Nickelodeon, do you want to watch the old TV shows that you watched as a kid? Here you go. And then you can
exactly.
introduce your kids to them, which is cool. You
Yeah.
know, so we've always kind of been nostalgia or whatever, and nostalgia has its good and bad, I think,
Mm-hmm.
partly.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if anything, like it's just there's something like you said, it's about how you feel good, it's how you feel safe. And tbh, like, I mean, the world itself is not never really been safe that much,
No,
especially for marginalized people, whether it
exactly.
be color, sexuality, religion, any of these things. So when you can feel safe about something, that's what I think is really cool. And that's why, people always want to say, like, oh, people are so nostalgic. Oh, why did they have these rewatch podcasts of, like, these shows from the 2000s or whatever? And I'm just like, well, they're trying to make money, I think. But, like, also, like, there's a market for nostalgia. Like, there's we have to, unfortunately, sometimes think of consumer. We have to think of, like, especially if you want to make money off of things or you want to do any of this. I mean, of course, like, you're writing a book, but, like, yeah, like, you want to get a product out there so people can read it and also see themselves in it, or they can
Hmm.
relate to you, whatever, like, all that. But, like, that's fine though. Like, that's how the world works, unfortunately. Consumer, capitalism's gonna be in there a little bit, but even though we hate capitalism sometimes, like,
Right.
really.
Of
Oh,
course.
but we know, like, but there's nothing wrong with, like, nostalgic things. There's nothing wrong with, like, any of that stuff. But it all comes back to a matter of, like you said, you feel safe, you feel secure, you feel like, oh, it was so nice when I was a child and didn't have bills, like, and I was just watching Goosebumps all day, or, like,
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like, I love the good old Goosebumps crew. They have a podcast, and
Oh,
they have it
cool.
on YouTube and on your podcatchers of choice. But, like, they do all sorts of Goosebumps stuff, like, where they've interviewed people from the show. They've interviewed, they haven't interviewed R.L. Stein, obviously, but, like, they've interviewed, like, like, people who worked on the TV show, people who they interviewed the artist who did a
Very
lot of those
cool.
covers, like, these different things. And that's probably because they're all different generations. Like, some of them are
Hmm.
younger, and some of them are, there's one at least who was born in, like, the 80s, probably around your age, our age, that kind of thing. So, but if anything, like, but that's just one example, right? Like, there's so many other examples. So I like how you put that, where it's a lot of this, because you're talking about nostalgic movies, you're talking about movies from years gone by. It's really because these movies, if for you, at least for your book, like, they make you feel safe in some way. They make you feel, warm and fuzzy and all this. And that's nice.
And we
And what
need
I think, yeah,
joy. I'm
we
sorry, good.
need joy. No,
We
we
need
need
joy.
joy. Absolutely. That's perfect. That doesn't matter. There you go, right there. And what's interesting too, and I think what's nice, because you're also a therapist and you are somebody who deals with that kind of thing, and you teach people this, you teach about therapy and
Hmm.
counseling. But what I think is interesting is that we also can understand that, especially these movies, because there is this kind of feel good spirit and escapism in 80s movies in particular,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Especially 80s and 90s. But, like, people want to talk about the Goonies and how wonderful it was. Oh, the Sandlot, it was my favorite movie, or, like, whatever, all these things, right? But the thing is that it was also a different time back then as well,
Hmm.
and that's not always the best excuse for anything. But it's interesting that we can also, like, and I think you do it in the book, where you're able to say, like, yeah, these movies are a comfort for me, like, I did watch them growing up. However, there are things in it that don't age the best.
Oh
And
gosh, of course.
it's okay to still enjoy it,
Yes.
to a point, with some stuff. Please don't watch Birth of a Nation and be like, ah, the good old days. Like, we don't need
Right.
that. Like, don't do that. But, like,
Right.
but there are things where it's like, yeah, I think if you want to speak about that a little bit, where it's like, yeah, because I think you do mention that in the book, where it's like, yeah, some of these things may be considered problematic nowadays.
They don't
Maybe
hold up.
are a yeah,
Yeah. They don't hold
but
up.
yeah. What do you kind of think about that? I guess,
Yeah, that's so
because
great. I'm really
definitely,
glad you brought this up. I don't think that anyone I've talked to has actually brought this in or asked me about this. So I'm really glad that you did. Um,
always.
yeah, I can't not. I mean, I'm a like trans inclusive feminist, like social justice framework
Mhm.
clinician, and I'm always thinking about this. And when I went back to do a rewatch of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze. By the way, I love sequels that are like so take themselves so seriously that they have like a subtitle. It's like so anyway, one of the first scenes, there's a fat phobic joke. And I cannot look past that, especially as a kid who was made fun of for my weight all the time and like bullied and like And so I have to name that and write about it and do some analyzing about it. And it's not that we then throw out the movie, it's just that we hold that and we also hold this at the same time. Like you have to. Um, in Karate Kid 2, which again is such a beautiful, beautiful movie. They're in Okinawa. Tamlin Tonita is, playing Kumiko, who's just beautiful. And she's doing this traditional dance. And she later in the 2000s was interviewed about it. And she said, there was nothing that was traditional about that. The people, all of those sort of like white crew of people, the director, all of the people who were telling her, oh, no, you should turn this way because it looks better in the camera. And she's going like, that's not how the actual dance goes. This isn't how this dance is. This is a very special ceremonial dance. And so fast forward, this is a beautiful opportunity for correction in Cobra Kai. Do you watch Cobra Kai, Jesse?
I have not seen a Karate Kid movie.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm literally like,
You're like,
so
what
this
is
is,
happening?
but you know what, 2025, that maybe means I have to watch all that. But I'm aware of what Cobra Kai is, mostly just because Robin Lively was on there at one point because she was in a Karate Kid movie. So I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I
Oh
get
yeah.
it. Like,
Yes, yes, yes. Robin Lively, who's amazing. Spoiler alert, but Talon Tomita does come back. It Cobra Kai really holds integrity. Something I love about sequels are the sequels that hold the integrity of the original film. And Cobra Kai actually does. I mean, it's totally ridiculous in other ways, but it holds integrity and brings back a lot of characters from the original first three movies. And Tamlin Tomita shows up and she said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to be on Cobra Kai unless I learn the actual, go back and relearn the actual traditional dance and do it as it's meant to be done. And then she did. And she was like, that's how it's going to be. And so there's like these opportunities for like sort of healing and moving through things. She's also like started a theater company. She's done a lot of incredible stuff and she's been in a ton of things. But the things that don't hold up have to be named and have to be said and have to be analyzed from that framework. And we can do that and we can also still love the movie. Like it's okay. I think in the cancel culture, sometimes it's just like, okay, that is fired. And some things should actually really be fired. But these movies and in this book, and maybe some of the movies listeners that you're thinking about as your comfort movies, you know, they're still, if they're still your comfort movies, they're still your comfort movies. If they bring you joy, get it because we need joy right now. Like, especially for folks who are in traditionally marginalized groups, as you said, like we need that joy. So, whatever that is for you, do that. If for you, Jesse, if you're like one day like having a shit day and you're like, I need to watch Carrie, you know what I mean? Like,
and then
that's
also watch The Rage Carry too because it might be
oh,
garbage, but
I
you know
love
what? I
Rage.
kind of like it
See,
though.
there you go. That's what I'm talking about. Like it can be garbage and you
Oh
can
yeah.
love it. Stu Pankin, who I interview in the book, who's in Mannequin 2, and he's in so many things. Arachnophobia. I mean, this guy's like been in every single thing. He's the voice of Earl Sinclair in the Dinosaur Show. Did you remember that show?
Yeah, I remember that show.
Uh,
It was Michael Jacobs, the same guy who did Boy Meets World. I think he was working on that
oh,
too.
cool. Oh, that's awesome. I love that. And I interviewed him about Mannequin 2, and he was so happy to talk about it. He goes, no one asks me about Mannequin 2. And I'm like, what? How could they? This is like my second favorite comfort movie after Grease 2. And I asked him, what were some of his comfort movies? And he said some movies like Teacher's Pet and something else. And he said the reason that they're comfort movies, he said they're actually kind of dumb movies, but the reason that they're comforting is because I saw them with my dad. And I said, "Oh, that's really beautiful that you had those moments to remember, even if they weren't great movies, but you remember seeing them because you were with your dad." And he said, "Yeah, it's not so much about the movies, it's more about who you were with and how you felt seeing them." And
Hmm.
I would add, and what was going on in your life that you needed them
Yeah,
and still need them today. And so
agreed.
Stu really got it. I love that. He really just named what I think this book is trying to invite in. And I did. I asked all the celebs what are their comfort things. So read the book and you can see what are some of the comfort
Yes,
things
yes,
from the celebs.
absolutely, absolutely. Did you at all ask Stuart Pankin about his time as Commander Plank on Xenon at all?
No,
Or
I don't even know
no?
what that is. What
Oh
what
my
is
God.
that?
Oh my God. Xenon, Girl of the 21st Century. Okay. It was a Disney Channel original movie.
Oh my
It had
God.
three sequels. And it's
Whoa.
about a girl who lives in space on a space station with her family. And she's brought to Earth because I don't remember exactly why, but whatever. Raven Simone's in it as
Oh.
her friend. Kirsten Storms, who was on General Hospital back in the day. Might still be on there. I don't know. But yeah, and he plays Commander Plank, who I don't remember who he is in the movie, but he is there. So, oh, also, wait a minute, because you did get to talk to Scooter McGavin
Oh
himself
yes, I did.
and that guy from House Arrest as well. Okay, I also know him as that, and of course he's from Greece too.
Yep.
But I will tell you this much: if you want to see a great Christopher McDonald role where you're just like, oh, good for him, you need to check out Lemonade Mouth.
What is it?
On Disney Channel. Lemonade Mouth on Disney Channel.
Lemonade Mouth? I've never heard of that.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it is about it's like if you take the Breakfast Club
Uh-huh.
and like these people meet in a band and they form a little band. It's called Lemonade
Okay.
Mouth.
Oh
And
my
it's really
gosh.
cute.
Aw.
Christopher McDonald, who you interviewed for the book, it was
Mhm.
wonderful. You got to talk to him on Zoom. So jealous, but he plays the kind of overbearing, like sports obsessed principal of the
Mhm.
school. And
Mhm.
guess who is the music teacher? Who is like whatever? Tisha Campbell from Little Shop of Horrors.
Love Tisha Campbell.
Oh,
Love her from
you
Martin,
need to
all of
check it
it.
out. I'm just saying,
Hmm.
Lemonade Mouth.
Hmm.
You got Bridget Mendler, who literally is like a space CEO now. Naomi Scott, who was just in Smile too, but she was also in the live action the Power Rangers movie they did a couple years ago, and also the Aladdin movie.
Mm.
Fantastic. British. Love her. Just so many good things in this. And yeah, DComs are also like very and for me at least, maybe not for you because you may have been a little too you may have been older than, whatever. But especially at a certain point, like those are definitely comforts. And it's just
Mm.
funny that these
That's so
people
good.
still get to have that for some of them. Like,
Yeah,
and I don't know. That's really interesting. But
that's
those
so
are your two
cool.
recommendations. Like
Thank
go check out
you.
Go check
Thank
out
you.
Xenon if you want to go see Stewart and something, and go check out Lemonade
Love
Mouth if you want to go see
those.
Chris and something.
Thank you for
Because you're
those
gonna be like,
recs.
oh yeah.
No, it was totally dreamy to talk to Chris McDonald on Zoom because he is so gorgeous. Like
He is so
he
hot.
took my breath away. He's like so, it was like confusing for me. I was like, what's happening? And his
Uh,
eyebrows are so bushy and beautiful. And he genuine. This was his Grease 2 was his first movie, and he was over the moon to talk about it. Like he
yes.
loved it. They love them. They love it. Maxwell Caulfield, not so much, but I think everybody else was so excited to be there, so happy to be there.
Mm.
And Chris McDonald was, and he's just such a huge star. He's in Hacks, all this stuff. He's been in everything, Thelma and
Oh yeah,
Louise.
you're right.
And I was just like, I can't believe that he took an hour plus of his time to chat with me about
Right.
a movie from 1982, and he loved it. And he was like, I was on my motorcycle, I was riding up and down the stairs and
Like who
inside
am
of the high
I?
school building. I
Like
know.
who am I? Like
Like,
what?
I'm like, are you serious? Is this really true? Like pinching myself. And he was
Right.
just so happy to do it. And I think all
Yeah.
of the people in Greece too, I know we're coming back to Greece too. I think
It's
they're
fine with
also
me.
happy that there's a cult. It's now a cult movie because when it came out and for a
Yeah.
long, long time before it started playing in syndication on
Yeah.
TV, everyone hated it. And I think one of the main problems is that it came out the same day that ET came out.
How are you going
So
to
what
compete with that?
what are you going to do about that? I mean, Maxwell said that he went to go see ET on that day.
Right, and
Like,
you're even in the movie. It's your movie.
and I don't, I mean,
You're
there's no
the
shade on
lead.
that. Like, I get it. He was like, I was in line with
Right.
my wife. We had Reese's Pieces, whatever. Like, I get that.
Right.
But that's just, there were
Right.
maybe some choices that could have been made a little bit differently that would have
True.
helped. But now there's such a resurgence. And I was an underdog in so many ways growing up. I love movies that are underdog, that are
Yeah.
sometimes like unloved or missed or, you know, missed over, passed over. And I
100%.
want to bring them in. I want to show my love for them. And I want to invite other people who love them or love other movies that are similarly, like Jawbreaker, for example,
Oh
to come
yeah.
in and be like, I love this. And here's why. And to really just sit in that love and that joy and
Yeah.
to embrace it. Some people are like my best friend's like, I can't rewatch movies over and over and over again. And I'm like, girl, are you serious? I
Okay.
I do because it's like listening to a song that evokes something in you that makes you feel good. I want that over and
Yeah.
over again. And
Yeah.
this is this is really what the book is about.
I think so too, yeah. And it's interesting you say that there's such a cult for it because, you know, like with Grease 2 especially, like you have literally Chris McDonald's first movie. It's
Hmm.
literally Michelle Pfeiffer's like second ever movie.
Hmm.
Like nobody knew who she was.
Nope.
And then you have like random people where you're having like Tab Hunter, you know,
Talk about
who
a queer movie again, right?
oh my God, like, and his whole thing too, Tab Hunter's an icon. But like the fact that he did polyester the year before, which if you ever watch John Waters movies, I know they're a lot to deal with, but
No, I
polyester,
love polyester.
oh
It's so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I love poly. I love John Waters movies. I'm in.
Oh, good, excellent. Yeah, polyester's fantastic. So I haven't seen all of them. I really need to, but oh yeah, anyway. But you have like Tab Hunter. I particularly like, even though they're not super mean, but like, you know, they do comment on, you know, Connie Stevens's hair. But I love the little twins.
The twins are
And
great.
they're so cute. Like everybody's in it. But like random people who are in it. Like literally, like those twins are literally the sisters of one Katie Sagal, Leela from Futurama, by the
Whoa.
way,
Whoa.
because
That's awesome.
They're Gene and Terry Segal or whatever their
My
names are.
God. See, I didn't even know that. Look at
Like
that. You're
there you
amazing.
go. Like there you go. Like you didn't even know that like literally Peg Bundy has two sisters who are twins apparently.
That is amazing.
Who are
That's
also
so
famous kind of
amazing.
like anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. And the guy who plays
So
Brad is Olivia
mm,
Newton-John's boyfriend at the time, or husband. I don't know, boyfriend or
yeah,
husband.
yeah.
And
That
that's
yeah.
amazing. Hmm.
And then you have like other random things like Bobby Hill's in this movie. It was like
Hmm.
her second ever film. Pamela Adlon, like what? Like
Hmm. Hmm.
it's just weird and it's so interesting that this movie is like set in the 60s. It's obviously like going off of Grease, obviously, which
Hmm.
was very much the 50s and all that, but this in a weird way is such an 80s movie too.
Yes,
Very
definitely.
unapologetically,
Yeah.
which is just super fun. But oh yeah, like, and it's just cool that this kind of amalgamation of people got together and was able to do this. And you know, credit to Pat Birch, you know, she
Hmm.
only has so
Thank you.
much longer. She only has so much longer on this world, I feel like. You know, she is
Yeah.
getting up there in age. But the
Hmm.
thing is that like for what it's worth, like I think whether you liked this movie or you didn't like this movie or whatever, like, you know, I think the dancing's better in Grease 2 personally.
Yes. Yes.
Like, you know,
Hmm.
even though she did do the first one, which is fine, but like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
just cool that she was also able to like be a female director, you know, and
Yes.
be able to like do something cool that again has now gotten such a resurgence.
Yes.
And I don't know, yeah. But I just think it's interesting to just see the who's who of like who is in this movie before they would then end up having these amazing careers.
These
Not just
amazing
Michelle
careers.
Pfeiffer's,
No, no,
not just
no.
Michelle
A lot of
Pfeiffer, but like
people.
literally other people too.
Yeah.
Um, it's just really, really cool to see. But yeah, I think like if anything, I don't know. Do you have any other kind of thoughts to get out there before we start to wrap up our conversation or anything like that?
I will just say that for me, even though writing this book was emotionally challenging at times because
Hmm.
of the personal nature of some of it.
Right.
It was also, again, back to that idea of joy. It was so joyful. And to
Hmm.
have the experience of talking to some of these people who I had been like worshiping for my whole life
Hmm.
was incredible. And, I'll just say that. And then doing behind the scenes research also and putting in some production stuff to the chapters. I think if you don't love reading memoirs, I think you'll still love reading this book because of that. If
Hmm.
you're a cinephile, you'll like that. If you like campy shit, you'll like this book. Like
Right,
it's
right.
and it's really fun. Like even though I'm a therapist and it's some psychology stuff, I've written it in a way that's like really accessible. There's nothing in this
Hmm.
book where you're going to be like, this is an academic journal and I don't understand what the fuck she's saying. You will
Right.
understand it. It's very accessible. It's I think it's very relatable and I think
Hmm.
it's really fun. It's really, really fun. So I
Yeah.
think, Comfort Sequels was a joy and brought me back to all of the places of comfort in my life and the places that I still find comfort and new movies that now bring me comfort.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and again, I've been able to skim a little bit on this, but now I own it forever on PDF form, so I can go back and watch it I'll go back and read the whole thing once I watch all these
Oh, yeah.
movies. But it's cool that you were able to, and again, it's not like you are a person of privilege. Like you have a job, you have a life, and you were able to do something cool and make
Thanks.
something that hopefully will resonate with other people.
Thanks for
Um,
saying that, Jesse. I really appreciate that. I feel really
yeah.
seen in that. Yeah, it's really hard writers who work full time or
Yeah.
do, more than full time and have, like I said, if you have kids or whatever you
Other
have in
stuff,
life
right?
going on. And, I help take care of my mom now, but it's still like so
Hmm.
important to still make your art. Like, please make art, especially right now with like in the world, we need art and we need queer
We
and
need
trans
it.
artists to like just be lifted and come up and just
Yeah.
write your shit, sing your stuff,
Yeah.
like do whatever, perform your thing. Art is the thing that matters the most right now.
It's very important. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just been cool to be able to see how you've been able to make your book. And I don't know, it's really I don't know, it's a cool time, and it's just nice to see something that obviously it's your life. And yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say right now, but like literally I'm just like, it's cool. I like that you like these movies, and I think that's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. I know what I was gonna say. So I would also say, I have not actually picked it up yet, but I want to because she was on my show last year. I would also recommend for you, Emily.
Hmm.
I would recommend picking up if you haven't already. Isn't She Great? I'm gonna send you the link on Instagram, I think. But this is a collection by Elizabeth Teets, so she edited the book, but it
Uh-huh.
is a collection of essays because she used to, or she kind of still does. She does a film series. She lives in LA, but she is from Portland. She did a film series in Portland with a friend of hers called Isn't She Great, where it was all these different female centered movies. And so
Oh,
her book in
cool.
particular is like a collection of essays pretty much from different people who talk about a particular movie and kind of similar to you, like talk about like why it's important to them and all this kind of stuff. And it's all female led movies. So I would
Awesome.
say a recommendation for you, because it made me think of your book,
Hmm.
is Isn't She Great? So I'll also put that in the links as well in case, anybody wants to check that out.
Everybody
I
listens
think
to
I
that.
I
Yeah.
think it's on Psycho Beach Party when I did that last year, but that's what she was on for. But yeah, I would definitely recommend that one. And then of course recommending comfort sequels, man. Like, it's a good time. And again, I think it is very relatable, and it's cool that, you're able to show your love for these movies and for that's I think that's a good way to kind of end it all. But Emily, I want to thank you so much for coming on my show, talking about your book, talking to me about just movies in general. I always love that. Love finding other cinephiles who also love these weird movies that nobody else sees. But yeah, but of course, I'll leave all the stuff about your book in the show notes, and we've already talked a bunch about it. But do you have any other upcoming projects you want to talk about, or you want to put your socials out there so people can follow you and all that?
Yeah, Jesse, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. I'm just like, talk about being filled with joy. My heart is really full and I love it.
I'm glad to hear it.
Yes. Oh no, truly, truly. Yeah, you can follow everyone. You can follow me social at Ems Marinelli.
Mhm.
And maybe you could put that as well, Jesse,
I
if that's
shall.
okay, in the notes so people can do that. And you can buy comfort sequels. You can buy it on Amazon. If you don't want to buy it on
Mhm.
Amazon, you can buy it at a lot bookshop or local. It's in a lot of local bookstores too. You can
Mhm.
order it from Barnes and Noble. It's really out there. You can get comfort sequels. And right now, I'm kind of working on a follow-up book called Comfort Musicals, and Rocky Horror Picture Show is in there because it can't not be. And I'm working with musicals that meant a lot to me growing up, like Oklahoma, and just different ones like that. I also am a book that's going to be coming out probably in 27 is my guess. Is I'm co-authoring a book on trauma and Twin Peaks. And sort of
Nice.
like looking at trauma from different models and through the lens of Twin Peaks and the original series and Fire Walk with Me and then The Return.
Mhm.
And then I'm working on like a side dream project that I'm almost afraid to mention, but I will anyway because why not?
Why not?
Which is I'm trying to write an oral history of the movie Trees Lounge. Have you ever seen Trees Lounge?
No, I've never even heard of it.
In 1996, Steve Buscemi wrote it, directed it, and stars in it. And the book can only come together if I get Steve, and I'm close to getting him his interview. But if
Yeah.
I do, then I'll do that. And if not, I've gotten some wonderful interviews from production people already, and I can weave
Hmm.
that into something else that I do. But that would be a dream because Trees Lounge is very, very important to me as a film
Hmm.
growing up. You should watch it.
I probably need to
Total
because
rec.
I love a look at us giving you
I
recommendations.
know.
Um, I do love a Steve Buscemi, man. Like I do
Mm-hmm.
like it. So maybe you check that out. Oh
Chloe's
yeah.
in it. Chloe Sevigny. I hope I'm saying her name
Yes.
right.
Oh
Yeah,
hell
I'm saying it.
yeah. We love
She's
her.
wonderful. There's a lot of people in it. It's like kind of his friends. Just he like made this
Yeah, just
very,
like hanging out and
and
doing the
it's
thing, right?
autobiographical. So it's his memoir in a lot of ways, and a certain moment in his life, and it's beautiful, beautiful film. So people
Yeah.
love Trees Lounge. Maybe yeah. If you
Yeah,
haven't seen
check
it,
it
check it
out.
out. Mhm.
I will also at some point finish Twin Peaks. I have gotten through like part of the first season. I will do it, Emily. I promise. Okay. I'll try my best. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's
It's a
not
lot.
something to be consumed all at once. You really want to bite size that for yourself. And like
Literally.
my best friend says, and I love this, Twin Peaks is what happens to you when you're not watching Twin Peaks. And
Literally.
I
Oh my
love that
gosh.
because that you let it sink in. It comes in your dreams. It comes in your unconscious space.
Yeah.
Let that happen. I really like that. So, and then if there's anyone listening who loves Twin Peaks like me, I do
Uh,
host a podcast called the Twin Peaks Tattoo Podcast where I interview people about their Twin Peaks ink. And believe it or not, there's a lot of us who have a lot of Twin Peaks tattoos and just a kind of conversation about what it means to them. I had the pleasure of interviewing the woman who now owns and runs the Double R Diner, Tweed's Cafe in
oh,
North Bend, and she has damn fine tattooed on her knuckles. It's so
hell
dope.
yeah.
And Lane Freefall, who is actually in a Star Wars movie, she's a tattoo artist and she has a Twin Peaks tattoo and she does Twin Peaks tattoos on other people too. And just different people and
Nice.
lots of like women represented in that. And because for a long time, the Twin Peaks world was like a very cis het male
Male.
dominated
Yeah.
space. And I think now more and more there's like more women, queer, trans voices coming in through the Twin Peaks community. So um, that's really awesome. And I love to be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And also we might have to have you back for comfort musicals then.
My God,
Ooh.
absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
we'll get it on the books at some point because I want
Okay,
to
fair.
hear all about comfort musicals because I can get into those as well. But again, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Emily, for coming on the show. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
listeners,
much.
for taking the time to listen. As always, you can follow the show on social media on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Letterboxd. All of the social media links will be down in the show notes. Please follow me on your podcatcher of choice, the show Cult Cinema Circle, and also follow Emily's podcast, Twin Peak Tattoo Podcast, as well on your podcatchers of choice. Give us 5 stars, 1 2 sentence review, all that good stuff. If you like what you heard today or like what Emily has to say or what I have to say. And yeah, I think that's everything. But as always, thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye.